Hey folks, a little piece today on the power of changing your story, and it's a personal one for me because this is something that used to happen to me all the time, and I had no idea why it was happening until maybe in the last couple of years I started to realise or started to notice a pattern. I used to get neck pain, I used to get back pain, hip pain all the time, and maybe 10-15 years ago I was really worried, really afraid that that was a disc problem in my neck, a disc problem in my lower back, that my hip wasn't fit for purpose. I had all these fears and worries, and it would happen to me really, really often, and it didn't seem to stack up as well. So I wouldn't really get pain when I played football, yet I could be walking about, I could turn one way and then bam, my back starts to act up, my hip starts to get sore, or I would wake up one morning and my neck is just completely locked and I couldn't move. And the journey for me was in changing the story that I was telling myself about my symptoms. Part of it was that the fears that I had, they were running the show, I suppose. I didn't have a disc problem with my neck. I didn't have a disc problem with my lower back. I was afraid of those things partly because I'd read a lot, and I'd seen a lot in clinic that people who had disc problems with their neck or their lower back were quite debilitated by them. I'd seen it in my personal life as well, with some family members who'd struggled with this stuff. And what I realised over the course of time was that the symptoms I was having were not indicative of a disc issue. That was through learning, that was great. As well as that, they weren't indicative of damage or injury to my tissues. And they weren't kind of consistent with, okay, I've had a high load, high force, high speed sort of impact or trauma that would kind of indicate, yeah, you might have had a whiplash in your neck and you might have caused a problem. Or you might have, tried to catch something heavy that was falling and caused a problem with your back. Hadn't had anything like that. So for me, I started to have to examine the story I was telling myself about my neck, about my lower back, about my hip, and I realised that part of the ongoing nature of my symptoms was related to that story. So when I dismantled that and got a better understanding, and replaced that with something that was a bit more realistic, I suppose is the word I would use, that made a massive difference, because I was not now experiencing neck pain and going, oh crap, my disc, my neck, what if this goes to here, here, here and here. I wasn't half as afraid of it, and I knew that I wasn't, to what I would say to clients now, I wasn't throwing petrol onto the fire and making this a much bigger issue for myself by panicking about my body, and that's very easy for that to happen. So when that wasn't happening, it looked like this. My symptoms, instead of ramping up and staying up at an elevated level for quite a period of time, helped in part by my fear and my worry about them, they would go like this and back down again within a day or two, maybe 3 days. And it was more like a speed bump rather than running into a brick wall. And it made a massive difference. So the story that you're telling yourself about your symptoms, it's been built for a reason. It's been built by the experiences you've had, the injuries that you've had, the sensations and symptoms that you feel, the reading you've done around that, the advice you've been given around that, any labels, diagnosis, all that stuff goes into this story. And as well as that, the coping mechanisms that you have. So you may have seen somebody in your past really, really be debilitated by pain, and if that's the case, then especially if that was early on in your life, that might be how you've learned to manage symptoms, that you rest and you do what that person did back then. That doesn't mean that's the only way that it can happen. So if it's an area that you haven't explored yet as to what influences your symptoms, why do they keep going on, there's a lovely awareness piece that can be built around kind of even just writing down that story. What are all those things that you think about, that you worry about, that you've got a fear around about your symptoms? When you write them down, are they true? Are they 100% true? Do you have a fact-based, definite reason that this is the case? And if not, there might be some scope for change there. There might be some room for a different interpretation, And if that happens, that can sometimes make things a lot less fear-inducing, a lot less worry-inducing, a lot less stressful. And that really can make a big difference for your symptoms. So if you haven't had that exploration yet, you haven't had any awareness around this yet, this is the first time you're hearing this, it's definitely something to consider. It's definitely something to think about. If you need help with that, please get in touch. I'd love to help you. If I can't help you in person, I have an online program that goes through the whole lot of it. So if you'd like some help, get in touch. There are many things you can do to improve the symptoms that you have, and hopefully this will be a part of it, or something that you might not have considered that might actually hold a lot of benefit for you. Take care.